Welcome back to the weekend debate. I said public service broadcasting, and I think this is really apt because we are going into election year, and there's a fair amount of media on the Isle of Man, but only some of it is getting public service grants to do things like this. Kerry, obviously you came up with a sort of idea, which you put as Manx Radio has been debated last time round, wasn't it? I think what was going to be the future. Can you outline what your thoughts were at that stage?
Well, my thoughts were not specifically about Manx Radio, although everybody jumped on the bandwagon and sort of said, oh, you're trying to do down Manx Radio. Absolutely, I was not, at all. Have the greatest of respect for Manx Radio. What I was trying to motivate in Tynwald was the idea that what we need in the Isle of Man, I believe, is an overall public service media strategy. Because we've never had a strategy. And if you look at countries where you've got developing democracies, they regard having a public media strategy as being as important as having a water strategy or an electricity strategy. They recognise that public service media is necessary in a healthy democracy. So, basically in its purest form, this means you have media which is paid for by the people and it's for the people. So you pay with your taxes, money goes into a pot, that money is used for a body to produce media which is impartial, and it's without political influence, it's without commercial influence. That's the ideal, I think, that it would be nice to aim for. And to do that, you have to have an overall framework so that you say, right, okay, we gather in this much money from the taxpayer, we gather in this much money from the BBC, and then we look at how we're going to share that money out. And we either have perhaps one licence holder who then, to me, in an ideal world, to me, that licence holder could possibly commission content from different production houses or companies
like the Channel 4
or individuals
sort of
on the island.
Channel 4?
Yeah, and as long as that content was impartial, it could buy in content. So you're not giving your money necessarily in one lump to just one organisation. Well, you are, but they're sharing it out a bit more. So for example, instead of saying, I think a few years ago they said to Manx Radio, right, you need more visual content. So I believe what happened was 2 very expensive cameras were bought, but they were positioned in the radio studios. And to me, that's such a waste, because you're just filming a radio interview. If you've got expensive cameras, which you don't even need expensive cameras, but if you've got cameras, you should be out there making stuff with those cameras. So in that sense, you could say, okay, well, there's that money, but let's ask some young people like Nathan or whoever it is, to get out there with their phones, with their, their small cameras, their digital devices, and make some stuff, and we'll pay for it out of this pot, And I think there has to be some mechanism, perhaps it's the Communications Commission, some overall mechanism that checks on content and makes sure that content is reaching old people, young people, and everyone in between. That the content is going out on FM and also podcasts, and it's reaching everybody. Because that's another thing about public service media; it has to reach everybody. But at the moment, generally, it's just reaching the over 55s.
Who are dropping off as causes.
Yeah, and it's not just an Isle of Man problem. This is an issue worldwide with public service media. It's often it needs an injection of youth and energy so that it can reach that younger audience. It's not just a problem here. It's a problem right across Britain.
Yeah.
People
how do we reach you?
Getting their news through Apple.
Nathan, how do we reach you? You're not interested. I mean, isn't that? Not you personally, but it's so. How do you engage with the younger population?
Well, none of us really listen to radio. I mean, radio is not like. I mean, when I'm in my car, I don't put the radio on normally. I normally put my own music on. So it'll have to be something that interests us, that will have to like go and watch or listen to something. Otherwise, we wouldn't listen to it. We'll just read about it or hear about it from someone else.
You are literally bypassing everything there. You just make your own tunes and things.
Yeah.
So where do you get your stuff from? Do you go through YouTube? Do you watch stuff on that? Do you watch stuff on TikTok? Do you get broadcast lists on WhatsApp?
Well, yeah, there's like
or
YouTube
Snapchat
and TikTok. I didn't really think of them before.
Yeah.
Those nowadays are like where like you will get the news from or something like that. You'll hear about something on there because now like some of the big names in like radio and TV, they're all on TikTok and YouTube, so you'll see what they want you to like say or hear anyway. So,
which is so open to fake news, of course. And
because TikTok is sort of based on algorithms that, from what I understand, that are pushing people in certain directions. So you say, oh yeah, I'll watch that or I like that, and then that pushes you onto something else, which might be a more extreme version of what you've just looked at, and then that pushes you onto an advert, which pushes you onto something else, which makes you buy something. Yeah. It's not run by obviously a news organisation.
When's the last time you watched the news on telly at all? Ever? Do you? I don't myself, to be honest, because these days you can get it streaming or just look it up. But
I don't think I've ever like gone and sat down and watched the news. And anything, I sometimes walk in, it might be on and like my parents are watching it, if I'm sat in the room, I'll feel like listen to it, it'll just be in the background, it won't be something I'll sit down and watch, unless there's been something really interesting, like when like President Biden was voted in or his inauguration. That's when I'd watch something like that, but that's about it. I wouldn't really watch it like nightly and just listen to.
And this is normal, isn't it?
I'm just interested to know, Nathan, if there was like a younger version of Paul.
Okay, what are you trying to say? Where are we going with this? I'm very useful.
And they were producing something like this, or they were producing like a weekly podcast and interviewing various people on the Isle of Man. Do you think that might appeal to people of your age group?
I think it would, if it depends. I think.
Sorry, Paul. No offence.
No, I think it would depend on who's on it, rather than. I think if it was like local MHKs or something like that, I don't think it would really interest us, like ourselves. I think it has to be.
If it was more arts based, like they were interviewing bands that were going to be on the Villa or something like that, or people.
That's something that we would watch. Like if it was like the local. Like band or something like that, we would probably listen and watch them. That's how you'd sell the tickets to us, really.
Right, I'm booking you now. You've got the equipment. You go out and do some stuff. I'm teaching you how to film. You just do that. I mean, this is really interesting. And Jeremy, you come to the Isle of Man to live, and you find that there's not, like, for instance, a television station here. Did you think, where's BBC Isle of Man or the ITV equivalent, like the Channel Islands have? We seem quite lacking, don't we? Do you think?
I think there is. I think there is a lack of not only of public service broadcast, but of digital media companies on the island. I thought that that when the Department for Enterprise was reconstructed from the way that it was with the agencies, that the digital agency would be bringing those sorts of companies across, or attracting those sorts of companies to the island. But that doesn't really seem to have happened.
And we had all the satellite dishes put up, and now they've pulled out the Isle of Man. Beaming programmes up, and at one stage they were talking to us, talking to all the media about what to put on spare capacity to have an Isle of Man channel. Nothing just gets off the ground. What do you think? I mean, you work all this, and you see what happens in the Channel Islands. I'm sure they've got BBC and ITV.
Yeah. I mean, what you got in the Channel Islands is you got, well, for a start, you got 56 journalists, BBC journalists. Across the Channel Islands.
56 BBC paid.
There are 3 in the Isle of Man.
Well, there's 4 I think you go up to, but then they've got.
To me, there's a lot of negotiation that needs to take place between the Isle of Man 56. And the BBC, because the BBC has got an obligation to support minority groups within the British Isles. Mm-hmm. So we are a nation. And so
an underrepresented group.
We are underrepresented, yeah. So I think there's an argument to be put there. BBC invested in S4C, in BBC Wales, in
now
Scottish
BBC
television.
See how much money is spent on BBC Scotland?
There's a new channel, isn't there, for Scotland?
Massive amount.
So
and Alp as well.
I think that there's definitely I think we need to sit around the table with the BBC and say, well, I mean, I do believe that we should all be paying our TV licenses. I absolutely believe in that, because to me, you're paying for content which is going across the world, BBC World Service. It's just, I've met so many people when I've been travelling who've told me about how they've kept abreast of what's been happening in their own countries through BBC World Service, when they've had to hide at the bottom of their gardens, to listen to news from the World Service. So, I mean, it's an essential service. I really do believe that the BBC is essential for promoting the idea of democracy across the world. But that aside, how did I get onto this? I've lost my thread now. What was I talking about?
Well, the BBC and
having the conversation with the BBC to make sure.
Oh yes, we pay £5 million a year in licences on the island. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't pay anything, but perhaps we could negotiate getting a bit more back.
Yeah, but
we
been here before. They've done all this,
group.
But they've always said that Manx Radio, i.e. the government, they don't want to upset. It's going to Manx Radio. You've got a public service broadcaster already there. We wouldn't set up BBC Isle of Man because we'd be in competition with your own radio station.
It was always. I remember when we were setting up BBC Isle of Man, it was very much. Our instructions were set up BBC Isle of Man, but don't tread on anyone's toes and don't try to be too investigative. That's up to the local media to do. It's more about having a presence more than anything. But
is there not room for that as well?
Well, personally, I think there is. And I do think that we need to sit down with them and just say, look, we are a minority and we need some more money basically to do what we need to do. And I think we need to sit down with a blank piece of paper and say, right, let's ask the people of the Isle of Man what they want from their public service media. Let's see what they expect. How can we provide that? How much would it cost? Work that out. And then have these conversations with BBC and say, well, we need X. We need this much funding.
If nothing else, training for people would be ideal.
Yeah, you could BBC Isle of Man, we were always able to go on BBC training courses. Those were always open to us, which was fantastic. So that's what we need to do. We need to tap into that so that our journalists and camera operators and everything, can access that BBC training.
And if this content is available online, then this will be attractive to the Manx diaspora.
That's true. Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Yes.
Might make some of them want to come back.
Well, it might do, and we are trying to attract people to the island, aren't we? So I think that the more content we can put out there, the more we gain. It's difficult to put a price on, what you gain back. But look at Culture Vannon. Culture Vannon website. I think that ages ago they hit 1 million views for their little videos that they've made. And I think in this sort of online world, people want authenticity. They want something authentic, and we've got that in spades here. Manx culture is real, and it's something which you could really market to the rest of the world.
But this goes back to who should be making this product. Culture Van is part of government in a sense. It's giving money, isn't it? Like Manx Radio's giving money. And what about the independent?
Culture Van is a charity.
Yeah, but they couldn't make it without some money to make it. That's the thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's bring the Arts Council stuff in here. What do you do?
I've got myself into trouble.
Yeah. Come on. What do you do for this sort of arts? I mean, if you call it an art, does it come under that?
In terms of public service broadcasting, very broadly, the Arts Council has its budget, which is from the lottery funds, and anyone can apply for that. So if there were some media students who wanted to set up a company producing online content, a TikTok channel or something like that, of going out and interviewing people on Strand Street with their iPhones, then that's something that we would look at funding.
Would that interest you?
Yeah, I don't think TikTok would be the way to go about doing something like that. I think you'd have to be more like a YouTube-based thing, because TikTok, there's only about a minute worth of video on it. So anything you see on TikTok can only be about a minute long. So we'd have to...
But that's how long everyone's attention span is these days.
But that'd be great. It'd be quite an interesting thing to do, like to be able to have that sort of opportunity to see it and like try it for yourself rather than seeing it through like just like adults doing it rather.
I mean, we're in uncharted territory in the sense the future of media. I mean, there may be no local TV news on TV. I keep thinking it's all going to eventually just end up online. What do you think? Well, you know, the regions are like the BBC's putting in all the high definition regions soon, but up to now you couldn't even watch the local news at 6, whatever it is.
Well,
on
I
HD
remember it
channels.
wasn't that long ago. I remember when I was living in London, I was talking to someone who was working for a phone company, and they were saying to me, you know, mobile phones is where it's all going to be at. You know, people are going to watch films and TV programmes on their phones. I remember thinking, who is going to do that? Why would you want to watch? How could you watch something on a little screen like that? You know, but.
Yeah.
You know, life changes, you know, and things become
I thought
normal.
exactly the same thing, sort of, you know, however many years ago it was, and then caught myself, what was it, 3-4 years ago, sitting in Gatwick watching Andy Murray, you know, playing Wimbledon, and just on a phone this size. And I didn't think I was ever going to do this. Yeah.
yeah.
But let's ask the right generation. Do you watch most of your stuff on a phone?
I don't really like turn on the TV in my room. I haven't turned it on in months. I just sit on my phone whenever I want to watch something. I don't have to like sit down, but like I don't watch TV. I only ever watch like Netflix and Amazon Prime or anything like that. I don't actually watch TV. Like,
the idea of watching TV in real life is just completely gone,
No,
isn't
we
it?
just
I know
watch it
my
on the-
children
Hang
never
on,
watch
there's
TV in real life.
There's one exception for your age-ish, I'm sorry, but Love Island apparently, that's ITV literally grabbed that, made so much money because it was one of the few things they could find that outside of sport that the younger generation had to watch live because they were all tweeting and doing everything else at the same time. It had to be a live event, which is money to them.
Yeah.
Would that be the sort of thing you would probably watch then?
Yeah, if it's any, something like, well, maybe not Love Island, but like some like football or something like that, something that we would watch. I mean, like by the time if you don't watch it football live, you'll be told what the results are within minutes of it happening because or just on social media, it'll just get posted on, so you can't really avoid that sort of thing. That's why like a lot of the time you can just catch up on like just a short video of what happened in the TV show. If you don't want to watch the full thing, you don't even have to watch it anymore. You can just see clips of it so you understand the gist of what's going on.
Well, let's hope some people bother to watch this anyway, because that'd be nice. We'll leave there on part 2. Thank you.